Development Committee meeting for today, Tuesday, December the 12th. In fact, this is our final meeting of this year. Joined by my colleague, Councilman Huizar. We should be joined by Councilmember Busquiano in a few minutes. We have 10 items on the agenda, on the committee agenda today, and unless there is some objection, we're going to take items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8 on consent. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8 on consent. Okay. Mr. Clerk, we do have some cards, so let's start with Ms. McAllister. You've got 3 minutes, total of 3 minutes.
On all three of my numbers?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. You've got two items and one general comment, looks like.
Okay, let's start with number 9 here. I'm Patricia McAllister. Teacher, LAUSD, 7 years. Computer Consulting Unlimited, 12 years. I'm a computer consultant with a degree in computer science and 30 university hours in mathematics. So let's talk here. Now, number 9 here, you say you want to spend $1 million on unappropriated balance funds from 2017 to 2018. How in the heck you got $1 million unappropriated, and this money is supposed to be for people who are homeless? See, I've been following you guys for some years now. What you do, you hold this money to the end of the year, and you start jamming it everywhere. There's no way you're supposed to have $1 million that's unappropriated and people living on the street right outside of City Hall. Camps everywhere, tents, people living in their cars. You tell me you got $1 million that you're going to give to who? Economic Workforce Development. They're nothing but a bunch of racists. They hire Asians and illegal aliens, okay? So we need a government audit. We need an audit. I see it all the time. Even HUD HUD put a restriction on the city because you didn't use all the money on building housing. They're giving you money and you're sitting on it. I know why you're sitting on it. You're sitting on it to steal. And it don't make sense. There's no way you're supposed to have $1 million that didn't go to the homeless. Black people sitting on Skid Row with their children, and you got $1 million December 12th, 2017. It doesn't make sense. We need an audit. Now here you talk about number 7 here, $200,000 for the county probation. I worked in the camps and the halls, so I know about probation. I know I wasn't afraid to go around our children who were locked up in Kilpatrick and East Lake and everything. It was dangerous, but I wanted to help the children. They had nowhere to go when they got out. They may have probation officer and they get back in school. This money should have been appropriated. They need this. They need counseling. Some of them are homeless, and you're not giving them their money. So I know the game. I'm from Chicago. Like I said earlier, we invented the game. And now you got the mob down in Skid Row talking about you want a neighborhood development for Italians. I grew up around Italians and Jews. The Italians were the mob who funneled the drugs into our community. I'm just as nosy as I am today when I was a child. And it was the Jewish doctors who were giving out all the opiates and getting blacks addicted to heroin and cough syrup and all that. Now you're going to put the mob on Skid Row where black people are? You're doing that so they can keep funneling those drugs into the black community. I don't want the mob on Skid Row, okay? You tell your mayor that. They should not be on Skid Row funneling drugs, because that's all they do. The Italians. You know what I'm talking about. I grew up around Italians.
All right, thank you for your comment. We've been joined by Councilmember Busquiano. And we have additional comments by Mr. Barajas. Brian? Public comment.
Hello, Don Buscaino. How you guys doing? I just want to sum up a situation which can clarify your situation for your Economic Development Committee. What I'm referring to is if any of you looked at the situation where the Trump administration actually gained a progression of our initiative, that is Lyndon LaRouche's initiative, to have a United States under any president who would funnel collaborative measures with nations like China or Russia. If you haven't heard of the billions of dollars that are being injected as infrastructure development from the nation of China, consider yourselves misinformed. The other effects that I'm saying is consider one thing. West Virginia, under Justice Jim Justice, he clarifies that the $83 billion investment for China will uplift their state and local communities.
All right, thank you. That concludes our public comment for today. Let's move on to item 5. Mr. Clerk.
Item 5, Joint Workforce Development Board and Economic and Workforce Development Department report relative to the program year 2017-18 Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act carry-in report and request for authority to modify program year 2017-18 annual plan budget and related matters.
Okay, well, let's have a
Mr. Chairman,
quick,
Greg Irish,
quick overview.
Executive Director for Workforce Development Board. As you know, every year we actually compile or formulate an annual plan. That annual plan is a blueprint for all the activities that will be undertaken by the city related to workforce development. We formulated that plan. We bring it through this committee for council and mayor concurrence. It's formulated by the board with the assistance of the Economic and Workforce Development Department. Our plan ended up being around $73.5 million. You know that plan has projections because at the time we formulate the plan, we do not have the exact allocations that we get from the federal government through the state. Also, there may be some late grants that come in. So actually the plan is at $73.5 million. What we did and what we normally do this period of time is we take a look at our revenue projections. We found out we were $3 million short. We make some adjustments to that plan. What you have before you are the adjustments to that plan. Again, it's $73.5 million. We were $3 million short of what we had anticipated. We made some adjustments in terms of the funding levels to service delivery within that plan. The adjustments include we had to cut some of our workforce centers. Most of the burden of the $3 million cuts were on the top of the department. It took some cuts in terms of its staffing, in terms of its expenses. Then we passed along the balance of the $3 million to some of the service providers. So you have budget sheets that show the difference because our report that we sent over, there was some minor imperfections in the report, but the budget sheets reflect the $3 million and how we intend to balance that $3 million shortfall. Primarily, again, it was cuts within the department's budget, the grants portion of the department's budget from workforce development proceeds or revenue. The balance came from some of the service providers, but it was less so. We tried to maintain the providers at a level as best we could, and the brunt of it was in the city taking cuts. That's what's before you today.
So service levels were reduced then?
They were reduced
degree?
a minor amount, but
Across the board?
Across the board, but most of the cuts came from the department.
Now, we know that without the net revenue, the shortfall you said was about 3.5? 3.1. Is that typical? Is it usually like that, or is this high or low? Or?
We're in a rocky situation because we depend so much on the federal government. So were I to tell you everything is sacrosanct, who knows what's going to happen with Washington? Right. We're going to constantly come to you with adjustments. As you know, we're on a continuing resolution until next week. So we can only project, and within this, we are projecting revenue. We think we're at that point we're okay until June 30th.
Okay. Any other comments? Members, any questions?
So I just wanted to make sure that there won't be any impact to our workforce, youth source centers from these reductions.
There were. We did cut
initially.
them. We did cut them. Again, it's reflected within the budget. We cut our dislocated worker stream by $246,000. We spread that over the work source centers that we have. We have 14 of them, youth source centers. We have 16 adult centers. So when you see the 514,000, the 246,000 combined, that's 56,000. We had to cut the adult centers, those two funding streams. Right.
And so
where you see the youth source centers, we cut them by a minor amount, 391,000. We spread that across the youth source centers.
So the impact to our youth source centers is about $25,000 per center. And to our adult work source centers, there's a holdback of about $22,000 per center.
Hold back means cut.
Yeah.
So what does that mean, 22,000? These are bodies, or these are employees, services? Can you put a,
We actually
Put something
sit
with a
down with,
figure.
we actually sit down with them, and they can determine where the cuts are. They have a budget. It's admin, it's normal things, expenses, rent, things like that.
Got
They can determine where they're going to take the cut in terms of $25,000.
Questions? Okay, well, if there are no other questions. I'm going to move that we approve the Workforce Development Board and the EWDD recommendations. And without objection, that will be the order. Thank you.
Chair, just to clarify, is that the November 21st report from them? Because there's two reports on the file.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that's
Overmore? Okay, great. Okay, why don't you all just stay right in place, and we'll have item 6.
Item number 6. If you recall,
Let's have the clerk call that item.
Okay, item number 6.
Yeah.
Joint Workforce Development Board and and Workforce Development Department report relative to the transfer of $375,000 from the General City Purposes Fund and $1,201,000 for the Unappropriated Balance Fund for obligations related to the implementation of Los Angeles Reconnections Academy 2.0 program in connection with the gang injunction curfew settlement.
Mr. Chair, again, Greg Irish, Executive Director of the Workforce Development Board. If you recall, remember the city attorney settled a lawsuit. This was part of the lawsuit. There was supposed to be some general fund money that was dedicated to providing services to those who were as part of that lawsuit, gang members and their family members in terms of workforce development services and accessing those services through our service delivery system. We actually have let contracts out. There was a certain amount of money within the settlement that was supposed to go to the delivery of services. If I recall, some of that money was advanced. We do have contract obligations, and what we're asking for is to fully load those funds in to meet the needs of those contracts. You want to expound on that, Catherine?
Last year, we were allocated about $3.3 million from the GCP, but we only obligated $2 million. We now have additional obligations for this fiscal year of $2.1 million plus an additional $500,000 for EWDD oversight for a total of $2.7 that we need for this year. We received 1.1 in the beginning of the year, so we are asking for the remaining 375 from the General City Purpose Fund and the other remaining 1.2 from the UB for a total of 2.7 this year.
Okay.
Again, this reflects the settlement, so it's not as if we have much leeway or
Right,
discretion on
right.
this. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, members, any questions at this point? Okay, we'll approve the WDB and EWDD recommendations without objection. That will be the order. Item 7.
Item number 7, Joint Workforce Development Board and Economic and Workforce Development Department report relative to authorization to accept $790,108,000 in U.S. Department of Justice and $200,000 from the LA County Probation Department to provide training, placement, and supportive services to youth in probation.
Mr. Chair, again, Greg Irish, Executive Director of the Workforce Development Board. This is a happy holidays gift. We actually applied for a grant from the federal government, the Department of Justice. We received that grant of $790,000. We have a great system that can deal with probationary youth, so the county said, well, I'll give you $200,000 extra to deal with young people connected to the probation system. We're merging that in terms of the $990,180. We're distributing a large portion to WorkSource Center providers, or I should say youth providers, which is also within the report. This is for direct services to connect those who are young people who are connected to the justice system, to workforce development services and the supportive services, to disconnect them from the system.
It appears things are pretty well wired up here.
Well, when you
So what role is the consultant going to play in this process?
there's going to be an evaluation which is required in terms of the effectiveness, and we'll have specific goals and objectives for moving these young folks into the workforce.
And how many do we hope to impact that way?
Sure.
It's there.
On the Department of Justice, the goal there is to serve 200 individuals over an 18-month period. on the second portion, the probation, that is really dependent on the referrals. So, we, unlike other grants where we do outreach and identify participants with the JJCPA funds that we receive through probation, those are direct referrals. So we're expecting anywhere between 50 to 100, but again, that will depend on the referrals from the center.
Again, it's very unusual for a county department to offer up money. They believe that the system will be effective. And we did compete nationally for the justice funds.
So this is a second year
The
grant
justice
then?
funds are brand new. We do have within our annual plan, we're anticipating $2 million from the county to deal with adults and with youth. So that money's coming in terms of different tranches as we go along.
Okay. Okay, members, any questions? Questions? Okay, then we'll move to approve the Workforce Development Board and EWDD recommendations. Without objection, that will be the order. Okay, item 9.
Item 9, Economic and Workforce Development Department report relative to authorizing the EWDD to access $1 million of earmarked unappropriated balance funds from the 2017-18 budget for implementation of Los Angeles Regional Initiative for Social Enterprise, LA RISE 3.0 program designed to provide transitional employment and job placement services to individuals experiencing homelessness.
Again, Mr. Chair, Greg Irish, Executive Director of Workforce Development Board. We're very popular today. The genesis of this was a federal grant. We actually competed nationally. We went to the U.S. Department of Labor with a concept that involved social enterprises to transition folks from homelessness from the justice system, because the two target populations are homeless folks and formerly incarcerated individuals. That program was a $6 million federal grant, which is ongoing. It's a 5-year grant from the U.S. Department of Labor. We built on that in terms of the success of that program. It's considered a best practice by expanding it with Measure H funds, $3 million of Measure H funds, and then, of course, the city dedicated $4 million. We received $2 million previously. We were supposed to receive another $2 million from the city in the aggregate to equal $4 million to contract with all of these different entities. Again, you've got multiple partners. The primary service delivery mechanism is social enterprises. What we've done is we just received $1 million of an advance. We didn't receive the other $2 million to make it $4 million. We're asking for the other $1 million, which of course will go to these providers and which is currently obligated within these contracts to make sure that we can deliver those services to transition formerly incarcerated individuals and, again, homeless individuals into employment.
Mm-hmm. Did I read this correctly, that the program is exceeding its goals?
You want to deal with, yes,
Talk a little bit about that, the outreach process, and why you've been successful in that way.
I think this is Gerardo Rubalcaba with EWDD. This has been a program that we've just have demonstrated a lot of success in being able to identify, the homeless population that is ready to transition into work. We've developed a great partnership with our social enterprises. We've, through this current program year, have expanded that network to include, I believe it's an additional 4 social enterprises. So there's just great demand for these services. Through the 6-month goal, our goal had been to enroll 50 people through December 31st. As of the time that we wrote this report, we were at close to 200, which is at about 132% of our goal. So currently, we're on pace to more than meet and exceed all of our goals under this program.
That's what the city funds. And we do have a study. We built this, again, the foundation of this was the federal grant. So we do have a study that was an independent study by an independent consultant required by the federal government of what is happening with the $6 million. And we built the other funding and the same approach with the $3 million of Measure H funds and the $4 million with city. So we can actually give you numbers for each tranche or each allocation of funding. These are just simply the numbers for the city portion.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be helpful to get a more
A
comprehensive
summary report,
summary
right.
report. Yeah,
Right.
perfect. Good. Okay, members, any questions?
Move approval.
Okay, I'll move that we approve EWDD's recommendations, and without objection, that will be the order.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Same to you. Thanks for the report. Item 10.
Item 10, Chief Legislative Analyst Report relative to proposed hotel Development Incentive Agreement to assist with financing and development of the proposed Cambria Hotel project located at 926 James M. Wood Boulevard and related matters.
John Wickham with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. Before you is the completed hotel development incentive agreement for the Cambria Hotel. Back on November 1st, the council approved the terms for providing an incentive to support the development of this project. That MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding for that, established all of the criteria for moving forward with an agreement, and this agreement in front of you today is that agreement. It is entirely in conformance with the terms that the council adopted back on November 1st. There is no deviation at all in any way, and this will allow the developer to move forward and begin construction.
Okay. We know that in some quarters these incentives are not favored, but I think they have served our city well in terms of encouraging the kind of hotel development that we need to have, especially in our downtown corridors. Any questions?
Can you, if I can, Mr. Chair, can you walk us through again what you used to warrant the $15.7 million incentive? I've seen the report, a study that was completed.
Yes, back when the committee and council considered this, we presented a report prepared by Kaiser Marston Associates. Yep. They look at the cost of constructing the building, the cost of operating the building, the financing in the building, to determine whether there is a gap in the project, a financing gap, that is detrimental to getting the project built and completed and operated. And the analysis based by that independent contractor and consultant was that, yes, there is a gap in this project of $15.7 million. Actually, the gap was over $18 million, but again, part of the analysis is to determine how much net new revenue the city would be generating as a result of this project being built, and the amount of net new revenue that would be available to project is 15.7. So the gap is actually higher than the amount of the incentive that the city is putting into the project, and so it's an obligation of the developer to find the remainder of that money to fill that gap.
But in turn, of course, the city benefits from the revenue, TOT.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. The policy is that no more than 50% of net new revenue is available to the project, which means that the city general fund receives the remaining 50%. So there's at least $15.7 million in net new revenue that's coming to the city. In addition, the project will comply with a number of community benefits to ensure that they provide good quality jobs. There's a room block to serve the convention center. There are a variety of community benefits attached to this project.
Looking forward to, as we are developing the waterfront in and around the downtown San Pedro area, to take advantage of this opportunity and these incentives. I just hope it's equitable across city lines, from Silmar to downtown to San Pedro.
Absolutely. This is all built on it's called the Big If policy, the Block Grant Investment Fund policy. And it's been, the terms for that policy have been used to help, mostly there have been a number of malls in different parts of the city, including the Valley and in Central City, the hotels in the downtown area. It was the policy structure that we used to analyze the Farmers Field deal.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So when a project is of appropriate size and can bring the kind of transformative economic development that we're all looking for the city, this is the policy framework. And really, this is one of the last remaining tools available. After the elimination of redevelopment,
Right.
this is really the most effective tool that the council has now to provide support for big projects.
Move approval.
And of course, consistent with other agreements, no incentive payment is made until the project is operating and generating new revenues to the city.
Exactly.
And that's our standard procedure.
Exactly.
Okay, members, without objection, I'll move that we approve the CLA recommendations. Without objection, that will be the order. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, item 11.
Item number 11, CLA report relative to the selection of Angels Landing Partners LLC to develop the Angels Landing site located at 361 South Hill Street and related matters in connection with the development of said site.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Economic Development Committee. My name is Oscar Ishko. I'm with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst, and with me.
And John Wickham with the CLA as well. Oscar's going to give the presentation, and just as a quick introduction, this is a significant step forward. The city has been trying to find a development opportunity for this property for a long time. Started with the CRA, and after the CRA went away, the city was given the opportunity to find a development team on this. It was an extremely productive process that the city went through. Very impressive development teams came forward and gave some very far-sighted, interesting proposals for consideration, and incredibly tough competition getting to this point. And we have an incredible development team, incredible proposal that's in front of you today. Oscar will give a presentation on the project that has been selected. And just so you know, the principals of the development team are here to answer any questions that you might have, as well as JLL, the consultant who assisted us in the RFP process. So,
Well, why don't we ask the team to come up to the table?
As John mentioned, we are very excited to present this project to you today because we feel it's a huge step forward in finally realizing a development on this parcel, which has been vacant for many, many decades under the CRA's ownership. This is a parcel that the city controls through an option agreement. So we've been given a specific amount of time to market and develop the site, and so we've gone through a year-long public solicitation process to find a preferred development partner for this project. And the public solicitation process involved 3 key phases, beginning with an initial pre-marketing phase in early of 2017 that led to the release of a request for qualifications in April of 2017. The city received 10 qualified responses from that RFQ, of which the top 4 scoring teams were invited to participate in the request for proposal phase, which was released in August of 2017. Of the RFP phase, we received 3 highly qualified proposals that made it a very difficult job to select a team because they were all very innovative designs. They included all the community benefits that we typically look for in projects of this magnitude, and the team that you have before us scored the highest overall and is showing to be one of the most qualified teams. The selection criteria that we focused on was that the project maximized density and floor area on the site to the highest level of intensity, creating a high-energy urban experience with a mix of uses, provide a publicly accessible open space, and incorporate community amenities into the development, including the historic Angels Flight Railway, and provide active and accessible linkages between the residential, office, and cultural amenities on Bunker Hill and the Los Angeles County Metro Regional Transportation System for pedestrians. The Angels Landing Partners proposal proved to be the strongest in addressing all 3 of the by proposing to build a 1.27 million square foot world-class mixed-use development that includes 2 towers over a shared podium. It includes, in the residential component, 400 apartments and 250 condominium units. There would be 2 hotel brands operated by SBE on site, which includes an SLS hotel and the Mondrian Hotel, for a total of 500 keys. There is approximately 50,000 square feet of restaurant and retail space, 32,500 square feet dedicated to a public institution, which is a K through 5 public charter school, and 54,000 square feet of open space elements that will be available for programming and public use year-round. The community benefits that the project looks to provide is affordable housing opportunities for families and individuals in the 80 to 120% area median income, business opportunities for minority and business and women enterprise, which would be monitored by a consultant with a target participation rate of 25%. the inclusion of the public educational institution in the project, which is highly needed in the downtown area, which what we're typically seeing is that as families begin to have children, they tend to move out of the downtown area because there are no schools. So this is fairly desired. And a hospitality training program that provides career building opportunities for many. The Angels Landing Partners LLC is a joint venture between the Peebles Corporation, McFarland Partners, and Claridge Properties, which are all minority-owned businesses with a long track record of delivering successful and innovative developments of residential, commercial, and mixed-use properties in Los Angeles and throughout the United States. They have demonstrated to have strong community outreach program that engages the community and stakeholders throughout the development process. With me today, I have Mr. Don Peebles from the Peebles Corporation, Victor McFarland from McFarland Partners, and Ricardo Pagan from Claridge Properties. The Angels Landing Partners team is here along with our consultants, Jones and LaSalle. If you have any questions about any of the components of the project.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate the team thus far. It's an exciting list of accomplishments you have individually and collectively. And so it's no surprise that you were selected. And we look forward to your involvement downtown. Talk a little bit about your commitment to community involvement, community participation in this process. It was sort of referenced. I have a sneaking suspicion that you obviously are supportive of small business, minority business procurement throughout this process. Maybe you can give us a little insight in terms of what you plan to do differently or what you plan to do that's going to be distinctive in this project as it moves forward. Gentlemen?
Why don't you talk about the procurement process? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members. We are, obviously, as you pointed out, we're certainly proponents and committed to equal economic opportunity because we are beneficiaries of those who have created those environments. So historically, throughout all of our companies, we have focused on engaging minority and women-owned businesses and setting goals because the goals set a bar of accomplishment and how we can measure accomplishments. So historically, throughout our company's history, we have exceeded as a whole on all of our projects well into the mid-20s in terms of minority and women-owned businesses in terms of contracting. And so part of the process that we anticipate engaging in is one, setting the goals 25% as a goal to at least as a minimum goal, and the goal is to expand that. And we're going to accomplish that by bringing on a firm that specializes in consulting and attracting minority-owned firms and also helping them through a certification process and also doing joint ventures. And so, for example, we are involved right now, we're developing a project in New York City that is about $500 million. It's a historic restoration development. And we got bids to do the facade restoration. It's a 100-plus-year-old building. And so the estimate of time was about 2 years. We got bids from top firms and a couple minority firms. Minority firms had a challenge of bonding the job. The job was about $22, $23 million. So we split it. And all the firms came back with a schedule of about 2 years to do the entire building. So we split the contract, cost us a little bit more money, but we shortened the schedule by 10 months. So we saved a lot of money there, and we broke the building in half. So the minority firm got half, and a majority firm got the other half. We pair, in Philadelphia, we paired one of the oldest African-American-owned construction companies in the country, McKissick, with a large firm, Hunter Roberts, at 35%, 65% on Philadelphia. In fact, we were awarding the project to McKissick, but they could not accommodate the bonding capacity, so we created a joint venture. So we do a lot of that through the process and also take subs that have proven their ability to perform at one scale and giving them the opportunity to scale up. You know, look, if somebody can do a HVAC system for a 100,000 square foot building, then they should be able to do it for a 300,000 square foot building. And if they don't have the capacity to do that financially, then we team them up with another firm and also tell that firm that, look, you're getting this job, the majority firm is getting this job because we are promoting this partnership of diversity. Now, when they go on to another job, they should look to bring the minority firm in on a job where it's not required. And if they don't, and they come back to us on another project later, that's going to be a part of our criteria. And then the other thing that we'll do as owners on this project is we will, in our weekly construction meetings, we will monitor, top of the agenda is minority and women-owned business participation. And then, for example, on our projects, I sign off on most of the major subcontracts, and we don't sign off without a summary of why we didn't hire a minority or women-owned business, and if we got bids from minority firms, what were they? And if there are no minority and women-owned firms that can do this scale of work, can they do a smaller scale? And only once that vetting is done do I sign off on a subcontract. And many times, because we tie our contractor, the general contractor, to this performance, we'll push back the contract, and I'll reject it because either they're not on pace overall, that we're at our goal. Because the process for us is that we try to never let our contracts to date fall below our goal. So it's a comprehensive and continued effort. And then taking firms that may not want to go through the certification process and may not have before, to evaluate them, have our legal people evaluate them to make sure they meet the criteria for certification. And if they do, then award them the contract and under the condition that they apply for certification. And we've worked with agencies around the country who buy into that concept and give us ability to count that. So it's a comprehensive effort that we're personally involved in. And so Victor, Ricardo, and I will be personally involved in that on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. I know the partnership have done projects here in Southern California and Los Angeles before. Has this partnership, though, done anything together in L.A.?
No, sir.
Okay.
However, Victor and I have known each other for decades, and we're doing business and have done business in other parts of the country.
Right.
So we have a good relationship there. And then Ricardo and I have known each other for about a decade as well.
Sure. And you all are known by your reputation, and it's very positive, I'll say.
Thank you.
Members, any other comments? Mr. Weezar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for those comments in terms of how important it is to look out for minority-owned businesses. I think it's something that, at least at the public side, we cannot do given Proposition 209 and other limitations through courts. But certainly the private sector has those opportunities, and you've taken that on very as an important factor in all of this. And I want to thank the CLA first and foremost for undertaking this effort. This is a parcel of land in downtown LA that has served some purpose for goats and vacant land. Believe it or not, there were goats eating the grass there for a long time. Yes, in our lifetime, it wasn't in the 1800s. And it's a parcel of land that through the CRA, the city has now undertaken the responsibility to dispose of it. And I think our version of disposing of it was to get a project that will fit in with the future of downtown LA. It's a new downtown in Los Angeles. It's no longer a downtown LA that you flip the light switch off at 5 o'clock and everyone went home, but it's a lively one. A lot more people living there, a lot more people working there, a lot more people visiting and touring as tourists as well. So, and I think this project captures all of that. And it's in a very critical location as it goes from the old Bunker Hill into the historic core and the rest of downtown LA. And I think it's going to be that linchpin between all of downtown Los Angeles and that region. And the CLA in particular undertook this they understood the vision of downtown, they understood where it was going, not only looked at the qualifications and making sure that we brought forth a team that could deliver, but also understood the context in which we were doing this development and the importance of this parcel of land, one of the last remaining parcels of this size in downtown LA. But I think the team we selected is a very good one, one that is committed to downtown. McFarland, in fact, is doing a project across the street from Pershing Square where we are re-envisioning that park, and they invested in the park for us to re-envision that park and get to where we want to get, and that's the type of community partners we appreciate. So while the partnership itself hasn't done any projects individually, they've been committed and know the downtown area as well and share our future vision for downtown, so thank you. We look forward to working with you, and again, thank you to the CLA, and I understood you had a panel, a selection committee as well with experts on there that understand finance, understand real estate, understand development, that were able to review all the proposals. And from what I understood, Mr. Chair, it was a very competitive process. Some very good proposals came forward. And I went to one of the community presentations, and let me tell you, they were all very good proposals with great ideas. This is ultimately, I think, what we saw in this team was an understanding of the local community and an understanding of making sure that we all need to participate in the growth of downtown and leave no one behind. And you guys have a great opportunity to do that. So thank you so much. We look forward to working with you.
One aspect of the project I was taken with was the amount of open space, public space. Could you talk a little about that? Your plan for how that plaza sort of plays into Angel's Flight and the rest of the
One of the key
downtown.
things about urban developments is the fact that you are going higher, so you're not taking up as much of the land area as you would if you were building a mid-rise or a lower density project. And on a project like Angel's Landing that actually also is doing you an elevation, you have a lot of opportunities to create little gathering spots, places for open space, and I think we will be taking, as we go through the community process, a lot of ideas from others in terms of how to improve ways in which that open space can be utilized to the benefit of the community. So we're looking forward to making it even better than what we've planned already.
And the tallest tower is projected to be what? The two towers, two or three towers?
Two towers.
And the tallest one is, pardon?
990.
900.
998.
Okay. How many stories is that?
88 stories.
Huh? 88?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to make it the tallest.
Plus the
building-
view, plus that.
You want to make it the tallest
that
building
hill.
on the West Coast, just put an antenna really high. Like the Wilshire Grand did that to you. Then call yourself the tallest building on the West Coast.
Right.
We don't really care about whether it's the tallest or the best.
There you go. That's right. That's right. Ms. Busciano, any other comments? Okay, great. Well, I agree. Let's approve the CLA's recommendations without objections. That will be the order. So thank you, gentlemen. Good luck.
Thank you, council members. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, what else is before us?
That is it, sir.
Well, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
You want to reconsider?
You want to reconsider? Which one? Which one to reconsider? Oh.